In this tutorial, we're going to have a look at how to light and also how to render our scene using the appropriate settings. So to start off with, we need to set up our scene using some of the common objects from Blender. So if you start off by adding a plane, which will be our surface or our ground, where we're going to put the rest of the objects on top of that. And then if you add a cube, a sphere, a cone, and a monkey head, and just apply some material textures to each of those to give them bright colors: yellow, red, blue, and green. Okay, now we need to just reposition our camera, so switch to camera view and Shift F to go into fly mode, get a decent angle that we can take a render shot from. Okay, go to the render tab and click render image. So rendering is basically drawing a picture of what the camera sees when the light from your lamp bounces off of the objects in your scene. So lighting and rendering go hand in hand. At the moment, one side of the objects is in complete darkness because we only have light on one side. To fix this and to get a more realistic render, what we can do is go to the World tab and tick the ambient occlusion box. Now we're going to export one image with ambient occlusion off and one with it on, and then compare the differences between the two. You can do that by choosing Image, Save As from the render menu, and we can see that ambient occlusion actually makes the render look much better when we have it switched on. So you can change some of the settings of the ambient occlusion. So you can adjust the factor to 0.5, for example, and now re-render that just to see the difference. When ambient occlusion is on, the gather options become available. So change the samples from 5 to 15 to make the graininess go away. So you can adjust the amount of grain that appears in your image by increasing the number of samples. Using ambient occlusion will slow down your render time quite a bit, so just be aware of that if you are planning to use it. It's going to take a lot longer to render. Press Escape to get back to your 3D view, and now we're going to switch from Ray Trace to Approximate in the render settings and re-render the image. And we can see that there's no grain in this particular image compared to the ambient occlusion version. Okay, press 7 now to go to top view, and we can see that there's only currently one light in our scene at the moment. So we're going to create a 3-point lighting system, one of the most common lighting setups that is used in filmmaking or 3D animation, 3-point lighting. So we're going to move the lamp to the key light position, and just to say, the three primary lights that we're going to use are the key light, the fill light, and the backlight. Okay, so we're moving this light to the key light position, which would be front left or front right depending on your preference. So it would be to the left or to the right of the camera. We're going to duplicate this light and then put it in the fill light position. So if we've put the key light on front left, then the fill light should be front right, closer to the object. Go to the lamp tab and reduce the energy to 0.5 or 50%. If both lights were the same strength, then the scene would be too bright, and also your fill light should always be less powerful than your key light. So turn the original lamp down a little bit to 0.8, the equivalent of 80% power. Duplicate the second lamp now by pressing Shift D and position it at the back as the backlight. Reduce the energy down to 0.3. We only want the key light to cast shadows. So if we want to turn the shadows off from the other lamps, we can do that from the lamp setting. So select both the fill and the backlights one by one and choose no shadows from the properties panel. You can compare the images with the shadows on and with them off. If you leave the shadows for all of your lights on, it's going to cast unwanted shadows and make the scene look a little bit less appealing. So it's usually a good idea to switch off some of the shadows, and it actually speeds up the render time as well. So now render the image and save it as a PNG. And let's have a look at all of the images that we've created now and compare them to each other. And we can see that probably the last one that we made there is the best version. So this has been a basic introduction to lighting and rendering in Blender 2.6.